Can I just check, please, that you're able to hear me? I think if you click one of the icons or just type in the bottom, okay, that will be helpful. Thanks, Matt. And thanks, Paul, that's smashing. Okay, so it's really helpful as I'm going through this for you to type in any questions at any time, and we'll incorporate those into the discussion and into the presentation as we go through. So it makes it more interactive for you if you do that, and also to let me know if you think I'm speaking too fast or if anything I say isn't clear. So without more ado, let's get cracking then. So OFSTED and no notice inspections is the title for this course, and we're going to be looking at what the triggers for that are and some things to be thinking about and prepared for. So the background to this then is that earlier this year in January, Ofsted announced to be undertaking no-notice inspections of schools where there were concerns about behaviour. And that was because of the report published in December last year, showed that 700,000 pupils were attending schools where behaviour needed to improve. So this was as a result of analysing Ofsted reports where there would have been RI against behaviour, not necessarily safety, but certainly against behaviour. And Sir Michael Wilshaw argues that the views of parents say that they think that good disciplined behaviour in the classroom was their #1 concern. He also argued, though, that the issue was often much further down the priority list of schools themselves. So, I mean, we might argue with that, whether that's accurate or fair or not, but it's something that he's taken serious action to address. Why the focus on behaviour? It's really a leadership issue, and that it's for heads and leadership teams to really describe what good behaviour looks like in their settings and to determine the culture of the school. And they need to ensure that high standards of behaviour are maintained both in and outside the classroom. Interesting, this one, both in and outside the classroom. I talk with a lot of colleagues formally and informally, and there's certainly a presence of heads and senior leaders during breaks, lunch times, and sometimes between lessons. But when I ask them about, what it's like for behaviour support, during lessons, it appears to be more on, a crisis basis rather than checking that things are calm and orderly on a regular basis beyond lesson observations. So it's something that colleagues might want to think about, that we're talking about behaviour everywhere here. And that's because good head teachers understand that positive behaviour underpins effective teaching and learning, and they make themselves visible and make sure that lessons aren't undermined by a disrespectful attitude to staff or authority. So it's seen as underpinning really whole school practice, whole engagement with the curriculum, and the underlying message is it's got to come from the top. So to continue on that, Michael Wilshaw has said that the retention of staff is as important as recruitment, and we do know that a high proportion of those saying that they leave the profession or leaving a particular school is because of poorly managed behaviour at a strategic level. And it's particularly important, obviously, for newly qualified teachers and those in the early years, that they are given the appropriate support in order to be able to crack on with the work that they've set out to do. It's one thing when a child is misbehaving on their own, but when they're having an impact on other children's learning as well, it's obviously extremely serious. And so it's about having the right support systems in place for them. So the thinking for no-notice inspections, again, this is all coming from Michael Wilshaw, the whole push for this is that he's saying that parents expect Ofsted teams to get to the heart of any problems that might exist in a school whether they're to do with discipline, safeguarding, poor leadership or governance, or narrow, unbalanced curriculum. And so that's why Ofsted have expanded the criteria for conducting unannounced inspections for the coming year. There have been some issues in some schools, even with the short notice, even with the day before notice, of managed moves for the day, of students either being encouraged not to come into school or being sent off for the day somewhere else. And the thinking behind turning up without giving that notice is that the teams will have a more likely view of what behaviour is like, typically day by day. What we don't want to do is get a false impression. So in September, from last month, 40 schools up and down the country were selected for 2-day unannounced inspections during a 2-week window in September. And these powers were already available to the inspectorate. And this was driven partly by some of the recent events in a handful of Birmingham schools. And as a result of the pilot in September, we're going to evaluate that, and there is a possibility or a feasibility of moving to a system of expecting all schools without notice rather than the half-day notice that the majority of schools currently receive. Now, there's no further news on that at the moment, but they're clearly looking to see the impact that has on schools turning up unannounced. It's obviously extremely stressful for all concerned, and so it's trying to get the fairest possible picture. But so we're still waiting to hear whether the pilot is actually going to be moved out further to other to the wider system. So beyond that 2-week pilot, they're still going to carry out unannounced inspections throughout the academic year. But the 2-week window meant that they were able to make an early assessment of their impact. And as usual for every inspection, the report is published on the Ofsted website, so there's no difference there. It does say on the report whether, when it says information about this inspection, it does say if it was a no-notice inspection or not. Again, Michael Wiltshire said he's giving thought as to whether there should be more routine no-notice inspections as part of the wider inspection reforms, and there'll be consultations on it. But the way it's working at the moment, the regional directors, the regional Ofsted directors, HMI, are using their local knowledge to identify where there might be problems so that they can respond swiftly. Need to make it clear, though, that although this was booked initially to talk about no-notice inspections as far as behaviour is concerned, you may have heard through Twitter and through other sources of information that Ofsted is also conducting no-notice inspections where there are concerns about rapidly declining standards. So where this happens, there'll be a RAG rating sitting in the Department for Education, which obviously Ofsted has got access to. And if there's evidence that standards have taken a nosedive, they will send teams in, again, without notice. And so it's beyond safeguarding and behaviour and the ability of staff to maintain discipline. That's going to be our focus for this session. But the reason I put that in there is because they're also conducting these no-notice inspections where there are concerns about standards of leadership or governance or the breadth and balance of the curriculum. That last bit that I put in brackets when I prepared that was in brackets, including where the statutory requirement to publish information to parents is not met. If they check a website and find it's not there, then they are going into schools. Matt, I've just seen a good question. Are Ofsted inspecting schools for evidence of good practice on a no-notice basis?